Picture this. A quiet street at dusk, the kind where every house looks like it's holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. I'm Rachel, 42 years old, standing on the porch of my suburban two-story home, watching the last sliver of sun dip below the horizon. The lawn is manicured to perfection, each blade of grass trimmed like it's auditioning for a magazine spread. Inside, everything is just as orderly. White walls, beige furniture, a life polished to a dull shine. I've been married to Dominic for 15 years now. He's in his mid-40s, an accountant with a steady hand and a steadier routine. He's dependable, the kind of man who never forgets to pay a bill or mow the lawn on Sundays. But there's a distance in him, an invisible wall I've never quite scaled. We talk, sure, but it's always about logistics. Work schedules, grocery lists, the next Saturday dinner with his parents. Those dinners are a ritual, a clockwork event where we sit around their oak table, passing mashed potatoes and small talk, while I smile on cue. Our home feels like a museum sometimes, a place where nothing is out of order but nothing truly lives either. I can't help but notice the silence that clings to every room. There's a memory that sticks with me, sharp as a splinter. One evening, not long ago, Dominic and I sat across from each other at our dining table, the polished wood reflecting the overhead light. The only sound was the clink of forks against plates, a metallic rhythm that seemed to mock the emptiness between us. I wanted to say something, anything, to break that quiet, but the words just wouldn't come. Instead, I watched him cut his steak with surgical precision, his eyes fixed on his plate like it held all the answers. That moment keeps replaying in my mind, a loop of what we've become. Two people sharing a space, but not a life. I work as an administrative assistant at a mid-sized marketing firm downtown. It's a job that keeps me busy, keeps the bills paid, but it's like running on a treadmill, lots of motion, no real progress. I type emails, schedule meetings, and watch the clock tick toward 5. Day after day, I feel myself fading, like a photograph left too long in the sun. I'm not living, not really. I'm just functioning. There's a hollowness in my chest I can't name, a sense that I'm slipping away from myself. I've started noticing the little things at work, the faces I pass in the hallways. There's this one colleague, Liam, in his late 30s, who works in the design department. He's quiet, thoughtful, with a calm demeanor that stands out in the chaos of deadlines and coffee runs. I've seen him during late-night shifts at the office, hunched over his desk, lost in thought. He's got this way of listening, really listening, when you talk to him, like every word matters. It's a small thing, but in a world where I feel invisible, it catches my attention more than I'd like to admit. Today, though, started like any other. I woke up to the gray light of dawn creeping through the bedroom curtains, the alarm clock blaring its relentless tune. Dominic was already up, dressed in his pressed shirt and tie, standing by the kitchen counter. I shuffled in, still half asleep, and handed him his coffee, black, no sugar, just how he likes it. He took the mug with a quick nod, muttered a curt "thanks," and headed for the door without so much as a glance in my direction. That moment stung, a sharp little jab to the chest. I stood there, gripping the edge of the counter, staring at the empty space where he'd been. I couldn't help but think back to years ago, when mornings weren't just a transaction. We used to linger over breakfast, laughing over silly things. Burnt toast, bad jokes, plans for the weekend. His smile back then could light up a room. Now it's like I'm handing coffee to a stranger. The drive to the office felt heavier than usual, the radio droning on with traffic updates I barely heard. Once I got to my desk, the day unfolded in its predictable rhythm. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow over the cubicles. I sifted through stacks of paperwork, the monotony of it all pressing down on me like a weight. Every so often, I'd catch myself staring out the window at the city skyline, the buildings stretching into the distance like they held some kind of promise. I'd daydream about something different, maybe a spontaneous trip, a new hobby, anything to break this cycle. But the fantasy always faded, replaced by the click of my keyboard and the shuffle of forms. Hours bled into each other, and before I knew it, the clock showed 5. Most of my coworkers trickled out, their chatter fading down the hallway. But I decided to stay late. There was a project I needed to wrap up, sure, but if I'm honest, I was also avoiding going home. Another silent evening with Dominic, the two of us orbiting each other like distant planets. Didn't feel like something I could face just yet. The office after hours was a different world. The hum of the air conditioning was the only sound, a low, steady drone that felt almost comforting in its consistency. The rows of empty desks stretched out around me, bathed in the dim glow of emergency lights. I finished my work, but I lingered, taking my time to pack up my things. Through the window, the city lights glittered like a sea of tiny stars, and I found myself drawn to the view, my reflection faint against the glass. It was peaceful in a way I hadn't felt all day, like the world had paused just for a moment. That's when I heard footsteps behind me. I turned to see Liam, his jacket slung over one shoulder, a faint smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. He asked if I needed a ride home since it was late, and I hesitated for a moment, the idea of facing the empty streets alone less appealing than I'd expected. So I nodded, grabbing my bag, and we walked out into the cool night air together. Now I'm sitting in the passenger seat of Liam's car, the slow pace of his driving almost hypnotic. The engine hums softly, a steady undercurrent to the quiet that wraps around us. Outside, the streetlights flicker past, casting fleeting shadows across his face, illuminating his sharp jawline for a split second before darkness swallows it again. His hands grip the steering wheel with a casual ease, and I can't help but watch the way his fingers curl slightly, steady and sure. We don't talk much at first, and I'm surprised by how okay that feels. It's not the heavy, suffocating silence I'm used to at home. This is different, comfortable, almost intimate, like we're sharing a secret without saying a word. I lean my head against the window, the glass cool against my skin, and let my thoughts drift. My mind feels like a jigsaw puzzle with half the pieces missing. I think about my life, how I've been fading into the background of my own story. I've spent so many years trying to hold everything together, my marriage, my job, the perfect little suburban facade, but somewhere along the way I lost track of who I am. I murmur these thoughts aloud, not really expecting a response, just needing to let them out. My voice is soft, almost lost in the hum of the car, but Liam hears me. He doesn't interrupt, doesn't offer empty platitudes. He just listens, his eyes occasionally flicking over to meet mine. There's something in his gaze, a quiet understanding that unnerves me, like he sees right through the walls I've built. It's disarming, and I feel a strange pull, a need to keep talking, to let him see more. The car slows as we near my street, the familiar row of houses coming into view. My chest tightens as Liam pulls up outside my house, the engine idling with a low rumble. I don't get out right away. I can't. I sit there, staring at the dark windows of my home, knowing Dominic is inside, probably asleep, oblivious to the storm brewing in my heart. The air in the car feels charged, heavy with something I can't name. My heart races, a wild, erratic beat that echoes in my ears. I turn my head slightly, catching Liam's profile in the dim light. He shifts in his seat, facing me, and his voice cuts through the tension like a whisper. "You're so quiet." "But I hear you." Those words hit me like a wave, crashing through years of silence, of being unseen. They strip me bare, and in that moment, something inside me breaks. Or maybe it finally wakes up. I don't know who moves first, but suddenly we're closer, the space between us shrinking until it's gone. It happens in the back seat of his car, under the faint glow of a street lamp filtering through the window, right outside my house, where everything should be safe and predictable. It's not loud or desperate. It's quick, gentle, human, a connection made of touches that say more than words ever could. His hand brushes against mine, tentative at first, then steady, and I feel a warmth I haven't known in years. It's not about passion or recklessness. It's about feeling alive again, even if just for a fleeting moment. There's no talk of tomorrow, no promises whispered in the dark. It's just this. Two people reaching for something real, something to hold on to, even if it's only for now. Afterward, we sit there in the quiet, the only sound my uneven breathing as it fogs up the window beside me. I trace a finger through the condensation, drawing a meaningless shape, trying to anchor myself in the aftermath. The weight of what I've done settles over me like a heavy blanket, but there's no immediate regret. Not yet. There's just this strange, hollow calm, like the quiet before a storm I know is coming. I finally step out of Liam's car, the night air biting at my skin as I close the door with a soft click. I don't look back as I hear the engine hum to life again, the sound fading down the street until it's gone. My house looms in front of me, dark and silent, a familiar shell that suddenly feels foreign. I fumble with my keys at the front door, my fingers unsteady, the metal cold against my palm. The lock turns with a quiet snap, and I push the door open, slipping inside as if I'm a thief in my own home. The familiar creak of the floorboards under my feet sounds louder than ever, each step a small betrayal echoing through the stillness. I pause, holding my breath, listening for any sign that Dominic might be awake. But there's nothing, just the heavy darkness that seems to press down on me, thicker than I remember, like it's carrying the weight of what I've done. I move through the hallway, my steps slow and deliberate, avoiding the spots I know groan under pressure. The air smells of the lavender candle I burned earlier today, a faint reminder of routine, of normalcy, but it does nothing to ease the knot in my chest. I reach the bedroom door and nudge it open, just enough to peek inside. There's Dominic, asleep in our bed. His form a dark silhouette under the covers. His breathing is steady, a slow, rhythmic sound that cuts through the chaos swirling in my mind. I stand there for a moment, watching the rise and fall of his chest, feeling like an outsider in my own life. How can he sleep so peacefully while I'm unraveling? I close the door as quietly as I came, my heart thudding so hard I'm sure it'll wake him. Sleep is out of the question for me. My body is wired, my thoughts a tangled mess I can't begin to untie. I drift into the living room, sinking into the couch, the cushions sagging under my weight. The room is bathed in shadows, the only light coming from the faint glow of a street lamp seeping through the curtains. My eyes settle on the family photos lining the wall, a gallery of smiling faces frozen in time. There's one from our 10th anniversary, both of us grinning at the camera, arms around each other, the ocean sparkling behind us. Another from a picnic years ago, Dominic holding a soda can, mid-laugh, his eyes crinkled at the corners. I remember those moments, how simple they felt, how I never questioned where we stood. Now, staring at those images, I feel like I'm looking at strangers, at a life I don't belong to anymore. My mind keeps circling back to what happened in Liam's car, replaying every detail with a clarity that makes my stomach churn. There was a thrill in being seen, in feeling something after so long, but it's tangled up with this gnawing sense of betrayal. I've crossed a line I can't uncross, and the guilt is starting to creep in, sharp and cold, slicing through the numbness. I catch a whiff of something unfamiliar as I shift on the couch, Liam's cologne, a subtle, woody scent clinging to my coat. It's a stark reminder, a physical trace of the moment I can't erase. I shrug the coat off, letting it fall to the floor, but the smell lingers, haunting me. My hands tremble as I stand and make my way to the kitchen, needing something to do, something to ground me. I grab a glass from the cabinet, the cool surface slipping slightly in my shaky grip, and fill it with water from the sink. The stream gurgles softly, the only sound in the oppressive quiet, and I watch the glass fill as if it's the most important task in the world. I take a sip, but it does nothing to steady me. My reflection stares back from the dark window above the sink, a pale, distorted version of myself I barely recognize. What have I done? The question loops in my head, relentless, with no answer in sight. Hours pass. Or maybe it's just minutes. Time feels like it's slipping through my fingers, impossible to grasp. I'm still in the kitchen, the glass of water forgotten on the counter, when I hear the soft shuffle of footsteps behind me. My heart lurches into my throat, a sudden jolt of panic seizing me. I turn slowly, half expecting to see nothing, to convince myself it's just my imagination playing tricks in the pre-dawn stillness. But there he is, Dominic, standing in the doorway, his hair tousled from sleep, strands sticking out in every direction like he's just rolled out of bed. He's wearing an old t-shirt, faded from years of wear, and a pair of gray sweatpants that hang loosely on his frame. The sight of him, so familiar yet so distant, sends a shiver down my spine. I don't know if it's guilt or fear, or some messy combination of both, but my hands instinctively grip the edge of the counter for support, the cold granite biting into my palms. His eyes lock onto mine, and there's an intensity in them I haven't seen in years, a piercing gaze that seems to cut right through the haze I've been lost in. It's not anger, not yet, but it's something searching, something raw. He doesn't say anything at first, just steps into the kitchen with a quiet deliberateness, his bare feet padding softly against the tile. I watch, frozen, as he reaches for the coffee maker, pulling a mug from the cabinet with a practiced ease. The silence between us is suffocating, heavier than it's ever been, and I can feel my pulse hammering in my ears. He pours himself a cup, the dark liquid steaming as it fills the mug, and the faint aroma of coffee grounds mixes with the lingering tension in the air. I want to speak, to fill this void with something, anything. But my throat feels tight, like it's clamped shut by an invisible force. Then he turns to face me fully, leaning against the counter with the mug cradled in his hands, and his voice breaks the quiet like a stone dropped into still water. Were you in that silence again? You look like you've come back. His words hit me like a tidal wave, crashing over me with a force I wasn't prepared for. I'm stunned, my mind reeling as I try to process what he means. Does he know? Has he somehow sensed the shift in me, the fracture that split my world apart since last night? Or is he just picking up on the way I've been drifting, lost in my own head for weeks, maybe months? I can't tell, and that uncertainty claws at me, sharp and relentless. My chest tightens, and I feel a surge of panic rising, hot and bitter, threatening to spill over. I open my mouth to respond, but the words stick, tangled somewhere between my racing thoughts and my trembling lips. My voice catches, barely a whisper, as I mumble something incoherent about a long night at work, a flimsy excuse that sounds hollow even to my own ears. I can't meet his gaze anymore. My eyes drop to the floor, focusing on a tiny crack in the tile, as if it holds the answer to everything. I'm waiting for him to push, to demand more, to unravel the lie I've just spun. But he doesn't. He just stands there, sipping his coffee, the steam curling up in lazy tendrils that catch the faint light filtering through the window. There's a knowing in his expression, though. A quiet certainty that unnerves me more than any accusation could. It's like he sees something I can't hide, no matter how hard I try. And that realization sends a chill through me, colder than the counter under my fingertips. The tension in the room is palpable, a thick, invisible fog that presses down on us both. I can hear the faint tick of the clock on the wall, each second stretching into eternity, marking the space between what was and what might be. My coffee mug sits untouched beside me, the steam rising from it in slow, ghostly wisps, mirroring the way my thoughts seem to evaporate before I can grasp them. I steal a glance at Dominic, and his face is unreadable, a mask of calm that only deepens the storm inside me. I don't know how long we stand there, caught in this unspoken standoff. But eventually, he sets his mug down with a soft clink and picks up the morning paper from the counter. He unfolds it with a rustle, the sound sharp in the quiet kitchen, and settles into a chair at the table, his attention shifting away from me as if the moment never happened. I'm left standing there, my hands still gripping the counter, feeling like I've been dismissed, but also like I've been given a reprieve I don't deserve. The rest of the morning unfolds in a surreal haze, like I'm watching it through a foggy lens. Dominic reads his paper, the pages crinkling as he turns them, completely absorbed in the headlines, while I move through the motions of normalcy. I pull a slice of toast from the toaster, the bread slightly charred at the edges, and set it on a plate. I sit across from him, pretending to eat, buttering the toast with mechanical precision, but my mind is 1,000 miles away. Each bite feels like cardboard in my mouth, tasteless and dry, because all I can think about is last night, the weight of it pressing down on me heavier with every passing second. I need to confess something to you, something I can barely admit to myself. I liked what happened with Liam. I don't regret it. Not fully, not yet. There was a moment, in the quiet of his car, where I felt seen, truly seen, for the first time in years. It was like waking up after a long, numbing sleep, feeling the blood rush back into my veins. I know I should be drowning in shame, and part of me is, but there's another part, a louder, more defiant part, that clings to that feeling of being alive. It's a messy tangle of emotions, a knot I can't unravel. The guilt is there, sharp and persistent, cutting into me every time I glance at Dominic, every time I see the mundane details of our shared life. The coffee maker, the neatly stacked dishes, the calendar on the fridge with our schedules penciled in. But alongside that, guilt is this electric sense of possibility, a reminder that I'm still here, still capable of wanting, of feeling something beyond the gray routine I've been trapped in. As I sit there, staring at the crumbs on my plate, I can't help but reflect on my marriage with Dominic. 15 years is a long time to build a life together, but it's also long enough to build walls, brick by silent brick. The distance between us didn't appear overnight. It grew slowly, fed by years of unspoken words, of moments where we chose comfort over confrontation. I remember the early days, how we'd talk for hours about nothing and everything, how his laughter used to fill up a room. But somewhere along the way, we stopped reaching for each other. We let the silence settle in, let it become our default until it was easier to say nothing at all. Maybe what happened with Liam was a desperate attempt to feel something again, to break through the numbness that's been suffocating me. Maybe it was a cry for help, or maybe it was just a selfish grasp at a fleeting spark. I don't know. All I know is that it's changed me, and I can't pretend it hasn't. I lift my eyes from the table and watch Dominic from across the room. He's still engrossed in his paper, his brow slightly furrowed as he reads, completely unaware of the turmoil churning inside me. The morning light streams through the window now, catching the gray at his temples, illuminating the familiar lines of his face. I study him like I'm seeing him for the first time in years, and a moment of clarity hits me, sharp and piercing. Can we ever bridge this gap between us? Is there a way to rebuild what's been eroded by time and neglect, or have I already crossed a line I can't come back from? My heart aches at the thought. A dull, persistent throb, because despite everything, I don't want to lose him. Not entirely. But I also don't know if I can keep living this half-life, fading into the background of my own existence while clinging to a love that may have already slipped through my fingers. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment if you enjoyed this story. This will help us create more engaging stories for you.